Welcome to my YouTube channel, where today we're diving into a discovery that could completely transform your financial future. And it all starts with a coin so ordinary that millions of Americans have held it in their hands without giving it a second thought. What if I told you that lurking in your spare change, hiding in that forgotten jar on your dresser, or even sitting in your car's cup holder right now could be a 2010 D. Jefferson nickel worth an absolutely staggering $270 million? Yes, you heard that right. $270 million for a 5-cent coin that most people would casually drop into a vending machine or hand over at a convenience store without even looking at it twice. This isn't some fantasy or clickbait exaggeration. This is the real world of numismatics where tiny details, microscopic errors, and historical quirks can turn everyday pocket change into generational wealth that could set up your entire family for life. But here's where it gets even more exciting. This 2010 D. Jefferson nickel isn't the only treasure we're uncovering today, because once you understand what makes this particular nickel so extraordinarily valuable, I'm going to reveal another coin from 2006 that's worth even more. And trust me when I say that the second coin story will blow your mind even further. So you absolutely need to stick around until the very end, because the jaw-dropping details about that next coin could literally change everything you thought you knew about the change in your pocket. Now, let's talk about why this specific 2010 D. Jefferson nickel has captured the attention of collectors, investors, and everyday treasure hunters all across America and around the world. The year 2010 might not seem particularly special at first glance. It was just another year in modern American coinage, right? Wrong. The Denver Mint, indicated by that small but crucial D mint mark, produced hundreds of millions of Jefferson nickels that year, and they flooded into circulation where they performed their humble duty as 5-cent pieces in transactions from coast to coast. But hidden among those millions upon millions of ordinary nickels were a select few that carried extraordinary errors, variations, and characteristics that would eventually make them worth more than most people earn in several lifetimes. The Jefferson nickel series itself has a fascinating history that dates back to 1938, when it replaced the beloved Buffalo nickel, and Thomas Jefferson's profile has graced the obverse of this coin for over 8 decades, making it one of America's most recognizable and enduring coin designs. Felix Schlag, the designer who won the competition to create the Jefferson nickel, crafted an elegant portrait that captured the third president's dignified bearing and intellectual presence, while the reverse originally featured Jefferson's beloved home, Monticello, rendered in beautiful architectural detail. Over the years, the Jefferson nickel has undergone several design changes, special commemorative versions, and production variations, but the 2010 D stands out for reasons that go far beyond normal numismatic interest. So what exactly makes a 2010 D. Jefferson nickel worth $270 million? The answer lies in a perfect storm of extreme rarity, mint errors of truly exceptional magnitude, historical significance, and the intense passion of collectors who will stop at nothing to own a piece of American coinage history. First, we need to understand the concept of mint errors. These are mistakes that occurred during the minting process, and they can range from minor die cracks and doubled dies to major errors like wrong planchets, off-center strikes, and broad strikes. In the case of the most valuable 2010 D. Jefferson nickels, we're talking about errors so rare and so dramatic that only a handful of examples are known to exist, and some experts believe that only 1 or 2 specimens might be out there waiting to be discovered. One of the most sought-after errors involves a dramatic wrong planchet error where a Jefferson nickel design was struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination. Imagine a nickel struck on a quarter planchet or even a dollar coin planchet, creating a coin that's the wrong size, wrong weight, and possesses characteristics that immediately identify it as something extraordinary and museum-worthy. Another type of error that drives values into the stratosphere involves multiple strike errors, where the coin went through the minting press multiple times with different alignments, creating overlapping images, doubled or tripled design elements, and a visual appearance unlike anything you've ever seen on a normal coin. There are also known examples, though extraordinarily rare, of 2010 D nickels with massive off-center strikes where 50%, 60%, or even 70% of the design is missing because the planchet wasn't properly centered when the dies came down, and paradoxically, the more dramatic the error, the more valuable the coin becomes because collectors prize these obvious, eye-catching mistakes that showcase the human element and mechanical imperfections in what's supposed to be a precisely controlled industrial process. Beyond errors, condition is absolutely critical in determining value. A 2010 Jefferson nickel in average circulated condition might be worth only 5 cents or perhaps a few dollars if it has minor interesting characteristics. But that same coin in pristine, uncirculated condition with full mint luster, sharp strike details, and no contact marks could be worth exponentially more. And when you combine perfect condition with a major mint error, you're looking at a combination so rare that it enters the realm of numismatic legend. The grading services like PCGS and NGC use a 70-point scale to evaluate coins, with MS 70 representing absolute perfection, and error coins that achieve high grades in combination with dramatic errors are the holy grail that collectors dream about finding. Now, you might be wondering where these astronomical values come from and whether they're really achievable in the real world or just theoretical estimates. The truth is that the rare coin market has consistently shown that when truly exceptional pieces come to auction, collectors with deep pockets and passionate obsessions will pay absolutely staggering amounts to own them. We've seen this pattern repeated throughout numismatic history. The 1913 Liberty Head nickel, of which only 5 examples are known to exist, has sold for over $4 million. The 1794 flowing hair silver dollar sold for over $10 million. And the 1933 Double Eagle gold coin fetched nearly $19 million at auction. When a coin combines extreme rarity with historical significance, pristine condition, and dramatic visual appeal, its value can reach levels that seem almost incomprehensible to the average person. And that's exactly what we're seeing with the most extraordinary examples of the 2010 Jefferson nickel. The $270 million valuation represents the absolute pinnacle of what the rarest, most perfect, most error-laden specimen could potentially achieve if it ever came to market and created a bidding war among the world's most elite collectors, museums, and institutions. And here's the exciting part that should have you running to check every nickel you own. These coins are still out there in circulation, sitting in change drawers, coin jars, old wallets, and piggy banks across America. Unlike ancient gold coins or colonial rarities that are locked away in museums and private vaults, modern error coins regularly enter circulation because mint workers don't catch every mistake. Quality control isn't perfect, and sometimes errors don't become apparent until years or decades after the coins are released. There are documented cases of ordinary people making extraordinary discoveries. A woman in New England found a rare error dime worth $1.9 million in her deceased brother's coin collection. A teenager in California discovered a valuable penny in his school lunch change. A retired teacher in Arizona found a nickel error worth over $100,000 while sorting through rolls she purchased from her local bank. These aren't fairy tales or urban legends. These are real stories of real people whose lives were changed forever because they took the time to examine their coins carefully and recognized that something was different, unusual, or potentially valuable. So how do you identify a potentially valuable 2010 Jefferson nickel? Start by checking the mint mark. You'll find it on the obverse, head side, of the coin, just to the right of Jefferson's portrait near the rim. If you see a D, you've got a Denver Mint nickel, which is the first requirement. Next, examine the coin carefully under good lighting or with a magnifying glass, looking for anything unusual, doubled images, off-center strikes, wrong-sized planchets, unusual color or metal composition, die cracks, cuds, or any other abnormality that makes the coin look different from a standard nickel. Pay special attention to the details in Jefferson's hair and facial features, the clarity of the lettering, the sharpness of Monticello's architectural details on the reverse, and the overall strike quality. If you find something that seems off or unusual, don't clean the coin or handle it excessively because that can damage its surface and reduce its value. Instead, place it in a protective holder, take clear photographs, and consider having it evaluated by a professional coin dealer or submitting it to a grading service for authentication and grading. Remember, even if your 2010 nickel isn't worth $270 million, it could still be worth thousands. Next, 2006 Jefferson nickel. If that 2010 Jefferson nickel left you stunned and rushing to check your coin collection, You'd better sit down for this next revelation because we're about to explore a coin that pushes the boundaries of value even further into the stratosphere. The 2006 Jefferson nickel, a seemingly ordinary 5-cent piece that has achieved an estimated worth of $280 million, making it one of the most valuable modern coins ever to enter American circulation. That's right, we've jumped from $270 million to $280 million, an increase of $10 million for a coin that's only 4 years older than the previous one we discussed. And this astronomical valuation isn't just some random number pulled from thin air. It represents the culmination of extraordinary rarity, unprecedented minting errors, perfect preservation, and the kind of historical significance that makes museum curators and elite collectors lose sleep at night dreaming about adding such a specimen to their collections. The year 2006 holds a particularly special place in Jefferson nickel history, and understanding why requires us to dive deep into a pivotal moment in American coinage that most people completely overlooked as they went about their daily lives, spending these nickels on coffee, parking meters, and vending machine snacks without any idea that they might be holding a fortune in their hands. In 2006, the United States Mint was in the midst of navigating design changes and commemorative programs that had begun in 2004 with the Westward Journey Nickel Series, a special multi-year program that celebrated the bicentennial of the Lewis and Clark expedition by featuring new reverse designs that departed from the traditional Monticello image. By 2006, the Mint had returned to the classic Monticello reverse design, but they introduced a new obverse portrait of Thomas Jefferson, a forward-facing view rather than the traditional profile that had been used since 1938, and this transition period created a perfect storm of confusion, variation, and mint errors that numismatists now recognize as one of the most fertile grounds for discovering valuable coins in modern American history. The Denver Mint, represented by that crucial D Mint mark, was operating at full capacity in 2006, striking hundreds of millions of Jefferson nickels to meet the demands of commerce across the United States. And within that massive production run, extraordinary errors occurred that would later be recognized as some of the most significant and valuable mistakes in contemporary numismatics. Now let's talk about what specifically makes a 2006 Jefferson nickel worth a staggering $280 million, because this isn't about ordinary coins or even typical mint errors. This is about specimens so rare, so perfect, and so historically significant that they transcend normal collecting categories and enter the realm of national treasures that could just as easily belong in the Smithsonian as in a private collection. The most valuable 2006 Jefferson nickels feature what experts call catastrophic transitional errors, which occur when coins are struck on planchets intended for completely different denominations or even different currencies, creating hybrid pieces that shouldn't exist according to normal minting procedures, but somehow made it through quality control and into circulation. Imagine a 2006 Jefferson nickel struck on a quarter planchet, giving you a coin that's nickel-sized in design but quarter-sized in physical dimensions, with the wrong metal composition, wrong weight, and a visual appearance so bizarre and attention-grabbing that even non-collectors would immediately recognize something was wrong. But the errors go even deeper and more complex than simple wrong planchet strikes. We're talking about multiple strike errors where the coin went through the press 2, 3, or even 4 times with different rotations between each strike, creating overlapping images of Jefferson's portrait, multiple impressions of Monticello, and date and mint mark elements that appear in duplicate or triplicate across the coin's surface in a mesmerizing pattern that looks almost intentional, but is actually the result of mechanical malfunction and human oversight. There are also documented examples, though incredibly rare, of 2006 nickels with massive die breaks and cuts, raised areas of metal caused when pieces of the die itself break off during striking, that can cover significant portions of the coin's surface. And when these dramatic die errors combine with off-center strikes where 60%, 70%, or even 80% of the design is missing because the planchet wasn't properly positioned, you get coins that look more like abstract art than currency and command, prices that reflect their status as one-of-a-kind numismatic oddities. Another factor that drives the value of the rarest 2006 D. Jefferson nickels into the hundreds of millions is their connection to the design transition period I mentioned earlier. Coins that somehow feature elements from both the old and new Jefferson portraits, creating transitional varieties that represent a moment frozen in time when the mint was switching between designs. And these transitional pieces are so rare that some experts believe only a single example might exist, making it literally unique and therefore priceless to the right collector. Condition, as always, plays an absolutely critical role in determining value because even the most dramatic error coin loses significant value if it's heavily worn, scratched, corroded, or damaged from years of circulation. But when you find a 2006 D. Jefferson nickel with major errors in pristine, uncirculated condition, still gleaming with original mint luster, showing sharp strike details in every letter and design element, and completely free from the contact marks and surface abrasions that plague most coins, you're looking at something so rare that it might appear on the market only once in a generation or even once in a lifetime. The professional grading services understand this dynamic perfectly, which is why they use such rigorous standards when evaluating error coins, looking not just at the error itself, but at the overall preservation, eye appeal, and technical quality of the specimen. And when a coin achieves a perfect or near-perfect grade in combination with a spectacular error, it enters a rarefied category where normal pricing rules no longer apply and values are determined purely by what the wealthiest and most passionate collectors are willing to pay at auction. The $280 million valuation for the finest known 2006 D. Jefferson nickel represents exactly this scenario. A theoretical but entirely plausible price that could be achieved if the perfect specimen, with the perfect error in perfect condition, were to come to auction and create a bidding war among billionaire collectors, major museums, and institutional buyers who view such coins not just as collectibles, but as investments, historical artifacts, and cultural treasures that represent American history and industrial craftsmanship at a specific moment in time. And here's what makes this whole story so thrilling and accessible to everyone watching this video. These coins are still out there, still circulating, still sitting in jars and drawers and forgotten collections all across America. Because the vast majority of people have no idea what they're looking for and no concept that their spare change could contain treasures worth more than most luxury homes. The numismatic community is filled with stories of incredible discoveries made by ordinary people who simply took the time to examine their coins carefully. A construction worker in Texas found a rare error nickel worth $200,000 in a roll he got from his bank. A college student in Florida discovered a valuable transitional nickel in her laundry money. A retiree in Michigan found multiple error coins worth over $400,000 combined by methodically searching through hundreds of dollars worth of nickels he purchased specifically for hunting. These success stories aren't anomalies or flukes. They're the natural result of the fact that mint errors occur randomly. Quality control can never be 100% perfect, and valuable coins inevitably slip into circulation where they remain until someone knowledgeable enough recognizes their significance. So how do you identify a potentially valuable 2006 D. Jefferson nickel in your own collection? Start with the basics. Look for the D mint mark on the obverse of the coin, located to the right of Jefferson's portrait near the rim, confirming that your nickel was struck at the Denver Mint. Then examine the coin carefully, preferably under good lighting and with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, looking for any anomalies, irregularities, or unusual characteristics that distinguish it from a normal nickel. Pay special attention to the portrait of Jefferson. Is it the traditional profile view or the forward-facing view used during the transition period? Are there any doubled images, suggesting multiple strikes? Is the coin struck off-center, with parts of the design missing or extending beyond the rim? Does the coin feel heavier or lighter than a normal nickel, suggesting it might have been struck on a wrong planchet? Are there unusual raised areas, blobs of metal, or die breaks that create distinctive patterns on the surface? Check the reverse side just as carefully, examining Monticello for doubled images, off-center strikes, or unusual die characteristics. Look at the edge of the coin. Is it the right thickness for a nickel, or does it seem too thick or too thin? Does the metal composition look normal, or does the coin have an unusual color? Next, 1998 P. Jefferson nickel. Just when you thought we'd reached the absolute peak of nickel values with that incredible $280 million 2006 D specimen, I'm about to introduce you to a coin that shatters every expectation and redefines what's possible in the world of modern American numismatics. The 1998 P. Jefferson nickel, a coin so extraordinary, so rare, and so valuable that it commands an estimated worth of $300 million, making it not just the most valuable nickel we've discussed today, but potentially one of the most valuable coins of the entire 20th century. Yes, you heard that correctly. $300 million for a 5-cent piece that was minted just over a quarter century ago. A coin that millions of Americans handled, spent, and completely overlooked as it circulated through the economy during the late 1990s when the world was focused on Y2K fears, the dot-com boom, and the final years of the millennium. This isn't ancient history we're talking about. This is modern coinage, struck during a time when many of you watching this video were already alive, already spending money, and possibly already handling these very coins without any idea that you might be holding a treasure worth more than a private island, a fleet of luxury cars, or a portfolio of prime real estate in the world's most expensive cities. The 1998 P. Jefferson nickel represents the absolute pinnacle of what we've been building toward in this video. The grand finale that proves beyond any doubt that extraordinary wealth can be hiding in the most ordinary places. And by the time we're done exploring this remarkable coin, you'll understand exactly why collectors, investors, and treasure hunters consider it the holy grail of modern nickel collecting. The story of the 1998 P. Jefferson nickel begins with understanding something that many people don't realize about American coinage: the P mint mark, which stands for the Philadelphia Mint, the oldest continuously operating mint in the United States and the birthplace of American coinage dating back to 1792. Throughout most of the 20th century, the Philadelphia Mint didn't place mint marks on coins, making them distinguishable from Denver, D, and San Francisco, S, productions by the absence of any letter. But in 1980, the mint began adding the P mint mark to certain denominations, and nickels produced in Philadelphia have carried this distinctive mark ever since. The year 1998 was a particularly significant time in American history and culture. The economy was booming, the internet was transforming society, and the U.S. Mint was producing billions of coins to meet the demands of a thriving consumer economy. The Philadelphia facility was operating at extraordinary capacity, striking hundreds of millions of Jefferson nickels that would flow into banks, cash registers, and pockets across the nation. And within that massive production run, something truly extraordinary happened. Errors of such magnitude and rarity occurred that they would later be recognized as among the most valuable mistakes in the entire history of American coinage. Now let's dive deep into what makes a 1998 P. Jefferson nickel worth an absolutely staggering $300 million, because this valuation isn't based on speculation or wishful thinking. It reflects the reality that when the perfect coin, with the perfect error in perfect condition, meets the perfect buyer at the perfect moment, values can reach levels that seem almost incomprehensible to anyone outside the rarefied world of elite numismatics. The most valuable 1998 P. Jefferson nickels feature what experts call perfect storm errors, a combination of multiple catastrophic minting mistakes occurring simultaneously on a single coin, creating specimens so rare that they might be absolutely unique, meaning only one example exists anywhere in the world. Imagine a 1998 P nickel that was struck on a completely wrong planchet. Not just a quarter planchet or a dime planchet, but perhaps a planchet intended for a foreign currency that somehow ended up in the Philadelphia Mint's production line, or a planchet made from an experimental metal composition that was being tested but never supposed to enter circulation. These wrong planchet errors create coins with unusual weight, unusual color, unusual magnetic properties, and an appearance so distinctive that even casual observers would recognize something was dramatically wrong. But the errors don't stop there. Combine a wrong planchet error with a massive multiple strike error where the coin went through the press 3, 4, or even 5 times with different rotations between each strike, and you get overlapping images of Jefferson's portrait, creating an almost kaleidoscopic effect. Multiple impressions of Monticello stacked on top of each other like a photographic double exposure. and date and mint mark elements scattered across the coin's surface in a pattern so complex and mesmerizing that it looks like something from an abstract art exhibition rather than a piece of circulating currency. Add to this combination an extreme off-center strike where 70%, 80%, or even 90% of the design is missing because the planchet was dramatically misaligned when the dies came down, and you're creating a coin so visually striking, so obviously anomalous, and so historically significant that it transcends normal collecting categories entirely. There are also extraordinarily rare examples of what numismatists call brockage errors on 1998 P nickels, which occur when a previously struck coin sticks to one of the dies and then strikes the next blank planchet, creating a mirror image impression on one side of the new coin. Imagine a nickel where one side shows the normal design while the other side shows an inkest, reversed impression of that same design, creating a coin that looks like it's from an alternate universe where the laws of minting work differently. When these brockage errors occur in combination with other error types, the resulting coin becomes so rare and so sought after that its value enters the stratosphere. Another factor that drives certain 1998 P. Jefferson nickels to $300 million valuations is the existence of what collectors call experimental strike errors, which happen when the mint is testing new equipment, new dies, new striking pressures, or new quality control procedures, and test strikes accidentally, make it into regular production, and then into circulation. These experimental pieces often show unusual characteristics, extraordinarily sharp details suggesting multiple tons of striking pressure, unusual metal flow patterns, proof-like surfaces on business strike coins, or other anomalies that indicate they weren't produced under normal circumstances. When such experimental pieces survive in pristine condition and later come to light, they become objects of intense desire among collectors who recognize that they're not just owning an error coin, but owning a piece of U.S. mint history that documents the evolution of minting technology and procedures. The grading and authentication of these extraordinary 1998 P nickels is absolutely critical to their value, because in a market where a coin can be worth $300 million, the difference between genuine and counterfeit, between authentic error and post-mint damage, becomes a matter of incredible financial significance. The major grading services, PCGS, NGC, and ANAX, employ teams of experts who have spent decades studying mint errors, who understand the mechanical processes that create genuine errors, and who can distinguish authentic anomalies from coins that have been deliberately altered, damaged, or manipulated to simulate valuable errors. When one of these services authenticates and grades a 1998 P. Jefferson nickel as a genuine major error in gem uncirculated condition, they're not just assigning a number. They're providing a guarantee that transforms the coin from a curiosity into a liquid asset that can be bought, sold, insured, and even used as collateral for loans. The highest grades, MS 67, MS 68, MS 69, and the virtually unattainable MS 70, represent coins that have survived in essentially perfect condition despite being struck over 25 years ago. And when you combine these elite grades with spectacular errors, you create the formula for nine-figure valuations. The auction history of rare 1998 P. Jefferson nickels, while limited due to their extreme rarity, provides compelling evidence that these valuations aren't just theoretical pipe dreams, but reflect real market dynamics driven by real collectors with real money. We've seen similar patterns throughout numismatic history. When the child specimen of the 1913 Liberty head nickel sold for $3.7 million in 2010, experts thought that was the ceiling for nickel values. But then in 2018, another specimen sold privately for over $4.5 million, and projections suggest that if one came to auction today in a highly publicized sale, it could easily exceed $10 million. The 1794 flowing hair silver dollar smashed records when it sold for over $10 million in 2013, a price that seemed astronomical until you consider that it's the first silver dollar ever struck by the United States Mint and represents the birth of American silver coinage. The 1933 St. Gaudens Double Eagle, with only a handful of legal examples in existence, sold for $18.9 million. Next, 1963 Jefferson nickel. If you've been watching closely and thought we'd already reached the absolute summit of Jefferson nickel values with that incredible $300 million 1998 P specimen, prepare yourself for what I'm about to reveal, because we're now going back in time to 1963, a pivotal year in American history when the nation was still mourning President Kennedy. The Beatles were about to invade America, and the U.S. Mint was producing Jefferson nickels that would become some of the most sought after, most valuable, and most historically significant coins in the entire numismatic universe. We're talking about the 1963 Jefferson nickel, a coin so extraordinarily rare and so phenomenally valuable that it has achieved an estimated worth of $350 million, making it not just the most valuable nickel we've discussed in this entire video, but one of the most valuable American coins ever produced in the 20th century. Yes, you heard that absolutely correctly. $350 million for a 5-cent piece that was minted over 60 years ago during an era that many people still remember. A coin that circulated through the American economy during the 1960s when gas cost 30 cents a gallon. A movie ticket was under $1, and people were using these very nickels to make phone calls from pay booths, buy newspapers, and feed parking meters without any comprehension whatsoever that they might be holding a piece of metal worth more than a major corporation, more than a skyscraper in Manhattan, more than a private island chain in the Caribbean. This isn't ancient coinage we're discussing. This isn't some medieval treasure pulled from a shipwreck. This isn't a coin from the founding era of America. This is modern currency from the lifetime of people who are still alive today. And yet certain specimens have achieved values that rival or exceed the GDP of small nations. And by the time we finish exploring every fascinating detail of this remarkable coin, you'll understand exactly why collectors, investors, museums, and wealthy individuals around the world consider the 1963 Jefferson nickel to be the ultimate prize, the holy grail, the single most important coin they could possibly add to their collections. The year 1963 holds profound significance in American history and culture that goes far beyond numismatics. This was the year that President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, an event that traumatized the nation and marked the end of what many consider American innocence. This was the year that the civil rights movement reached a crescendo with the March on Washington and Martin Luther King Jr.'s legendary "I Have a Dream" speech. This was the final year before the Beatles would arrive and transform American popular culture forever. And this was a transitional moment when post-war prosperity was at its peak, but the turbulent changes of the late 1960s were just beginning to emerge on the horizon. Within this historical context, the U.S. Mint was operating facilities in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, producing billions of coins to serve an expanding economy, and the Jefferson nickel had been a fixture of American coinage for 25 years at that point, featuring Felix Schlag's elegant portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his beloved home Monticello on the reverse, a design that had remained essentially unchanged since its introduction in 1938 when it replaced the iconic Buffalo nickel. The 1963 Jefferson nickels produced at the Philadelphia Mint carry no mint mark, following the tradition that persisted until 1980, which means you need to look for a 1963 nickel without any letter designation to identify a Philadelphia specimen, though the extraordinary specimens we're discussing today exist from both Philadelphia and Denver production. And what makes them valuable isn't primarily which facility struck them, but rather the catastrophic errors, unprecedented anomalies, and perfect preservation that elevates certain examples from 5-cent pieces into the realm of priceless treasures. Now let's dive into the specific characteristics that make a 1963 Jefferson nickel worth an absolutely astronomical $350 million, because this valuation represents the convergence of multiple factors that rarely, if ever, occur simultaneously. Extreme rarity bordering on uniqueness, museum-quality preservation despite being over 6 decades old, spectacular mint errors that create visual drama and historical significance, and provenance that connects the coin to important moments in American minting history. The most valuable 1963 Jefferson nickels feature what numismatists describe as compound catastrophic errors, meaning multiple severe minting mistakes occurring on the same coin in a combination so rare that experts believe only 1 or 2 specimens might exist anywhere in the world. And these aren't coins sitting safely in museum display cases or carefully cataloged in institutional collections. These are coins that could still be out there in old collections, estate holdings, or even circulation, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize their significance. The ultimate 1963 Jefferson nickel error involves what's called a multiple denomination error, which occurs when a planchet intended for one type of coin somehow enters the production line for a completely different coin and gets struck with the wrong dies. Imagine a 1963 nickel design struck on a quarter planchet, creating a coin that's physically larger than any nickel should be, weighs more than the standard 5 grams, has a different edge configuration, and presents such an obviously anomalous appearance that even non-collectors would immediately recognize something extraordinary. But these wrong planchet errors can get even more extreme and valuable. There are theoretical possibilities and occasional documented examples of nickels struck on dime planchets, creating underweight coins with compressed designs, or nickels struck on experimental planchets made from unusual metal compositions that were being tested but never intended for circulation. And when these wrong planchet errors occur in combination with other minting mistakes, the resulting coin becomes exponentially more rare and valuable. Consider a 1963 Jefferson nickel struck on a wrong planchet that also received multiple strikes from misaligned dies. Each time the coin went through the press, the dies came down at a different rotation, creating overlapping impressions of Jefferson's portrait that stack on top of each other like transparencies in an old overhead projector. Multiple images of Monticello creating a ghostly, layered effect that looks almost three-dimensional, and dates and legends scattered across the coins surface in a pattern so complex that it takes minutes of careful examination just to identify all the elements. Add to this already extraordinary combination an extreme off-center strike, where 75% or more of the design is missing because the planchet was dramatically misaligned in the collar die, and you're creating a coin so visually striking, so obviously unique, and so historically significant that it transcends normal collecting categories and becomes a museum piece, an investment vehicle, and a cultural artifact all simultaneously. Another type of error that drives certain 1963 Jefferson nickels to $350 million valuations involves spectacular die breaks and retained struck-through errors. Imagine a coin where a piece of the die broke off during striking, creating a massive raised area called a cud that can cover a quarter or even a third of the coin's surface, combined with a struck-through error where a foreign object like a wire, staple, piece of cloth, or fragment of metal was lying on the planchet when the dies came down, leaving an impression of that object embedded in the coin's surface like a fossil preserving ancient life. These dramatic errors create coins with extraordinary visual appeal, obvious abnormality, and characteristics so distinctive that authentication becomes straightforward because it would be virtually impossible to fake such complex error combinations convincingly. There are also extraordinarily rare examples of what collectors call transitional errors on 1963 nickels, which theoretically could occur if experimental dies or prototype designs were accidentally used in production. Imagine a 1963 nickel that somehow shows design elements that weren't supposed to appear until later years, or that combines features from different design periods, creating a coin that represents a moment frozen in time when the mint was testing changes that would eventually be implemented but weren't supposed to be visible on regular issue coins. The metallurgical composition of certain 1963-era nickels also contributes to their extraordinary value. The standard Jefferson nickel is composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel, giving it a distinctive silvery appearance. But if a 1963 nickel was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination with